I was thinking of my next question, because when you said, you beautifully described when you first understand that reality in film is fictionalized, that it is constructed somehow, manufactured, and it can create suspense, it can carry you away. And I have exactly the impression when I watch your films that your documentaries and your fiction films, they stem from the same root. There is the same urge, same thrust that goes to the ideal world of imagination, of dreams, of wildest fantasies. But still, there is a distinction between documentaries and fiction. And our film festival is also partly dedicated to this distinction. We are trying to understand what is documentary today, what is fiction today, although it is intermixed somehow. But still there are different approaches. What is it for you? How do you decide, are you going to use documentary or fiction approach when something fascinates you and emerges as an idea for a future film?
Well, it always comes at me with a certain amount of vehemence. So it's very often, I keep saying, like burglars in the middle of the night that you discover in your kitchen, and one of them comes at you wildly swinging an axe. So you have to deal with that one first. But you see, I have no problem whatsoever to take you, carry you away into sheer fantasy. Even in the film on the internet, which was played yesterday, there's a part in it with Buddhist monks against the skyline of Chicago, and all of them are tweeting. And I speculate about that Chicago has been completely depopulated, that all the people have moved to a station on Mars for survival, and a few monks are left, and they do not pray anymore. And I play Elvis, Are You Lonesome Tonight? And I do it, and the producers said to me, if you do things like this, or the radioactive albino crocodiles, they said to me, one day they will take you out in a straitjacket. And I said, I do it anyway. They have to take me out in a straitjacket, then I will stop. I think I should add one important thing, because what I'm trying to do in both fiction films and documentaries, there's a quest of truth. I'm trying to look deeper into what constitutes, by at least an approximation of truth. It is misunderstood by cinema verite, and it's misunderstood by television stations, and it's misunderstood by most filmmakers you are talking to. They believe that facts constitute truth, and this is not correct. Facts do not constitute truth, otherwise the phone directory of Manhattan, 4 million entries, all of them factually correct. That would be the book of books, but it is not. It does not give you illumination, it does not give you the insight of poetry, the deep introspection of poetry. It doesn't allow you to rise above sheer facts. Facts only have normative power. They create norms, but truth creates illumination. So I've always tried to look into illumination, and because of that, I had to move away from facts, and I started to invent. And I have no problem, sorry to give this long answer, I have no problem, for example, in a film I made on the fires of Kuwait, Lessons of Darkness. I have no problem to start, before the film starts, you see a written text on the screen. And the text says, it's a very beautiful text, it says, the collapse of the stellar universe will occur like creation in grandiose splendor. And under it, it says Blaise Pascal, the French philosopher, 17th century. Of course, it was not Blaise Pascal who said that, I invented it. And Pascal couldn't have said it better anyway. So, and I do this because I want to have the audience enter into the film at a very high level.
Just from the very start.
From the before you even see the first image, you are elevated to a very high level. And Shakespeare is my witness. He said once, the most, what is it? I have to be precise. The most truthful poetry is the most feigning, is the most invented, is the most, so, and I take him as my witness.
And this is not only your approach, but this is the story of many of your films, if I understand it correctly, because there is this quest to something that is unreachable, like the quest for El Dorado in Aguirre, the Wrath of God, like the quest in Fitzcarraldo with the seemingly impossible task of transporting the ship over the mountains. And this is completely crazy, because you can see that this goal is something that maybe not attainable, but that this is something that brings the truth of the characters and makes it visually accessible for the audience.
But when you say seemingly undoable, we have to insist on the seemingly, because I knew I could move a big steamboat over a mountain. I really knew how to do it. But nobody else believed in it. And you become very lonesome among many people. You are the loneliest of all that you can imagine. But you see, when you make films, when you are doing your own films, you have to move a steamship over a mountain. Every grown-up man or woman should eventually move a ship over a mountain. I say it not only as a metaphor, but at the same time, I have to urge you what I tell my cinematographer, for example: do the doable. You always have to do the doable. The last feature film I made in Bolivia, in a salt desert, and we had only 16 days for shooting, and it's a film that would need 35 days of shooting. But for example, the father of the leading actress died just 2 days before we started shooting, and I delayed beginning of filming almost a week. So all of a sudden we found ourselves with 16 days where I had to make the film. And the cinematographer said to me, we should have a perspective very far down, and let's dig a hole in the ground and have the camera in there. And I said to him, digging this hole in the ground and placing you and the camera in it will take us 3, 4, 5 hours. But in 5 hours, in the next 5 hours, we have to shoot the next 20 minutes of the film. And I said to him, the idea may be good, we have to do the doable. And let's move on, and we'll do something intelligent, which may be like an equivalent of digging a hole in the ground for a different camera position. And you have to develop a sense for what can be done. And with all the restrictions, and as there are obstacles and restrictions and time restraints, you have to become more imaginative when you make a film.
I will ask my last question from me, yeah, and then please get ready, пожалуйста, готовьте свои вопросы. Я задаю свой последний вопрос. This is the last question that I'm really particularly interested in about your approach, because out of film industry is a collective, something collective. You have to form a team, yeah, and you have to choose people. And this is, I think, also important and relevant for all the young students, because either you choose your friend or you are looking for some perfect version of an actor, of a cameraman, of a director, of set design, or anything. And we have some pretty extreme examples in the history of cinema, because, for example, Fassbinder, he formed a kind of a family, and even there were enemies and friends and constant tension in a kind of a family around him. What is your approach? How do you choose professionals, friends, people you meet in the street? How does it work for you?
Well, let's separate and let's speak of the technical team first. All of you have the task of finding real good people, but don't look, yeah, there's this famous cinematographer who made a wonderful film 20 years ago. This cinematographer will be in his 60s probably, so you have to find among your peers in your generation, and there are very, very wonderful talents. You have to spot them. Don't look for your best friends or so. Don't look for the yes men who say yes to everything. I always have a team that has strong opposition and voices disagreement. But you have to be very clear what you are doing, and you can solve disagreements very, very quickly. On my set, number one, there's never a loud word. It's always like open heart surgery. We speak, we function very quickly and very quietly, like in a theater for cardiac operations. But you have to find the best people in your generation. And what is good if you would learn the essential things yourself. For example, very early on I understood that good sound was the problem of all the other young people who started to make films. Many films were not finished because they had problems with the sound and they didn't know how to deal with it. So I became very attentive towards sound, and I have done sound in quite a few of my films all alone myself. You have to understand what to do with a camera. You should learn in case your cinematographer does not show up in the morning because he's ill, you have to be able to do the camera yourself. And it is much easier to argue with what you want to do when you really know what you want to have on the screen. And when it comes to actors, there's something which is inexplicable. Casting is a key to directing actors, to find the right ones. And it's not one individual or one big star for, let's say, the leading female part and the partner another big star. Very often these films are opportunistic and cast for the value of the actors. And the films come dead on arrival. Very often you see stillborn babies in the big film industry. You have to look after texture. What creates chemistry? So how do you put them together? That is something you cannot learn in a film school. You have to develop an eye for that. And the same thing with casting means when you do a documentary, find the people who are really good and on camera and bring life into your film. So that's very, very essential. And for what gives you the strength or the criterion for finding these good people is you have to have some fundamental experiences in life. The internet is not going to give it to you. It's a secondary level of life or communication, and it's not a complete joke. I say if you have traveled on foot, let's say from St. Petersburg to Madrid, it probably is more worth than 3 years in film school. Being exposed to the world, and the world is somehow revealing itself in a greater intensity than, for example, being on the internet.
Дорогие друзья, пора переходить к вашим вопросам. Пожалуйста, все вопросы задавайте в микрофон. Пожалуйста, поднимайте руки, подходите к микрофону. У нас в следующий раз каких задержек не было, да, тот, кто хочет, просто подходите и становитесь в очередь перед микрофоном. Вот молодой человек первый, потом девушка, да, пожалуйста.
Добрый день. Для начала я хочу сказать очень большое спасибо Вернеру Херцогу за то, что он приехал сюда. И, ну, это такое вот личное. Я обожаю ваши фильмы, они меня заражают просто невероятным энтузиазмом. И когда меня посещает некое отчаяние, то... то я все время вспоминаю тот энтузиазм, с которым вы создаете свои фильмы, и меня это очень сильно вдохновляет. Ну, как и ваши герои. Пескаральда, Агира Гнев Божий, и каждый сам за себя Бог против всех. Касательно вопроса, я хочу вас спросить вот что. В последние несколько лет, насколько я знаю, вы живете в Соединенных Штатах, в Лос-Анджелесе, и снимаете очень много фильмов с американскими актерами. Вы даже многие документальные свои фильмы делаете в Америке. Вот у меня к вам такой вопрос. Что вас привлекает в Америке? Почему вы в какой-то момент решили поехать туда и там заниматься своей профессией? И не чувствовали вы там себя как главный герой из вашего фильма «Строж»?
Помоги ему надеть.
I can hear the translation now.
Еще раз спросишь?
America, you see, I found my wife, Lena, who actually comes from Екатеринбурg, my Russian wife. She was in America and we met at a dinner 21 years ago and we ever stayed, came back home and stayed together. So I moved to America. I gave everything that I owned away, and I only owned a toothbrush, which got me in trouble with the American authorities, with the customs, because they believed I was a terrorist who has left his suitcase at the carousel, and there might have been a bomb because I showed my toothbrush and said, this is my luggage. So I was interrogated for 5-6 hours. But I moved to America because I love my wife. That's the reason.
Почему не в Екатеринбург? Было бы логично, если бы Екатеринбург.
What, of course, is new and interesting for me. It's new horizons. new alliances, new forms of distribution, new forms of technical tools. And since I live in, we live in Los Angeles, it's very easy, for example, to meet actors. All the actors are in somewhere in the city. You find them. And otherwise, I believe that Los Angeles is a very fascinating city because many things that are important for the rest of the world have been created there, like now, for example, video games or the internet or the collective dreams of people in the world, like Hollywood cinema, or like accepting gay people as an integral part of society, but all stupidities like yoga or aerobics or like the hippies or like new age pseudo-philosophy, it's all somehow together in California. So it's a very fascinating frontier there. A few things, of course, do not come from California, like Muslim fundamentalism. That is Saudi Arabia and Egypt and Yemen and Pakistan, not California. But it's a very fascinating place, and I like to live there. But of course, at the same time, I gave up certain things, like my own first language, Bavarian dialect. I do not hear anyone speaking Bavarian, and I miss it.
Пожалуйста, следующий вопрос.
Спасибо.
Здравствуйте, Вернер. Меня зовут Настя. Спасибо большое, что вы приехали. Это огромное вдохновление вообще и вдохновение для всех молодых кинематографистов, а для нас. Вот. Вопрос такой относительно сценария. Скажите, пожалуйста, как из вот этого большого количества идей, которые наверняка есть у вас в голове, вы выбираете именно актуальные? И как вы работаете над сценарием? Нанимаете ли вы каких-то сценаристов или же делаете это сами? Спасибо.
I always write my own screenplays. There were only two exceptions. One was Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans with Nicolas Cage. There was a screenplay by someone else, but I modified it a lot. Everything that you may remember in the film, like iguanas and wild things at the beginning and throughout the film, were all added by me. So the real wild stuff was introduced by me. So in a way, I'm also partly an author of the film. How do I distinguish what sort of story I should select? You have to become a real storyteller, and what is a good training is tell stories to 4-year-old children who are very motoric and have an attention span of 30 seconds. Tell stories to 4-year-old children, and then you see how you can come across. And I only make a film when I know this is big. It's so big, I have no choice, I have to make it. If that does not occur to you, you shouldn't start a film. That you really have, and then, but it's probably a little bit different with me. I see an entire film like you see a film on a screen. And I only have to copy what I see. And because of that, I write a screenplay normally in 5 days, sometimes in 2.5, 3 days. It has happened. But there has to be a real urgency, an absolute urgency, and I do not structure characters, and I do not develop storylines, and I do not build up conflicts or whatever, like on a blackboard you have these papers stuck on the wall. It's not like this. I just write with absolute urgency, and you leave everything left and right out of your way. It's you go for the essentials. And very often screenplays are too long, and when you film everything, later in editing you have the problem you have to cut it down from a 4.5 hours film into a 2-hour film. And you have to really butcher your own concepts. And I rather settle things when I create a screenplay. So, and quite often screenplays or things just stumble into me. I read at the house of a friend in a book, he was on the phone, love sick, and was 2 hours on the phone with his girlfriend, never said hello to me. I looked into his books and found 14 lines in a book about Lope de Aguirre, a Spanish conquistador. And I left and I rushed home and started to write a screenplay. And in 2.5 days I had finished the screenplay. And the only basis was 14 lines of this adventure. And I even wrote with my football club in a bus where everybody was drunk. My goalkeeper vomited over my typewriter, and I kept writing. So there was an urgency, and there was a clear vision of an entire film that came falling into my lap. You have to be lucky also, but you have to read at least 14 lines once in your life, or twice in your life.
14 lines, and for example, monkeys, they were already there in the first draft, or you invented, came you later when you was there? Just
no, that's interesting. The question. I had a speaking parrot who was in the film. One of the conquistadores had a parrot in the raft with everybody dead on board, would drift out into the open ocean, into the open Atlantic, and the parrot would scream El Dorado, El Dorado. And I saw when I was preparing the film, I like these little monkeys. They are called in Spanish frailes, like monks. They have faces like a human. And I had one of these monkeys, and it was a very sweet creature. It was always under my shirt or under my jacket, sitting on my shoulder, and reach out and I would feed him. And unfortunately, this little monkey died, and I had the feeling I should have more of them, and I would have 500 of them on my raft at the end. So things develop sometimes like that.
для тех, кто не видел, посмотрите фильм «Агира. Гнев Божий», это финальная сцена фильма. Пожалуйста, из той очереди.
Здравствуйте, это здесь Werner. Спасибо большое вам, что вы здесь. У меня такой вопрос. Вот вы говорите о команде, съемки ваших фильмов — это всегда риск особенный. Вот. Но у меня такой вопрос. Как вы себе вообще перед командой чувствуете, в том смысле, что вы же несете риск за них? Вот. То есть каким образом вы оправдываете тот риск, на который идете при съемке своих фильмов? Потому что я имею в виду и несчастные, какие-то несчастные случаи, еще какие-то конфликты в команде. Вот, как лично вы к этому готовы и как оправдываете себя? Спасибо.
Well, that's a question all of you have to ask yourselves. Number one, you can do things only with a great sense of responsibility. That's obvious. You are not going blindly into dangers and into situations that are incalculable. And I have learned it to be very good in assessment of risks. For example, Aguirre, I would be on a raft and I would go through the rapids that later in the film you see all the Spaniards, the conquistadores are going through the rapids. but I tested the rapids first all alone, only with a native Indian boatsman who went through. So I knew it was doable, and the risk was minimal. It looked spectacular, but I also want to give you a statistical detail, because people always believe that I'm a daredevil and I'm searching dangers, and so it's not really true. I'm very, very good at assessing risks, and in 70 films that I have made, never a single actor, never a single extra was ever hurt. So there's a statistical proof on my side. But I would say, test the dangers yourself first. But sometimes dangers cannot be calculated. I made a film, La Soufrière. In La Soufrière, on a volcano, was blind lottery. Because the volcanologists predicted the mountain would explode with a force of many atomic bombs, Hiroshima size. So I had 2 cinematographers with me, and I did the sound. And we bypassed the roadblocks by military 30 kilometers away by taking a jungle path. So we had bypassed the roadblocks, and then I stopped. And I said to both cinematographers, now this is going to be very risky. We may perish. Can I take one of the cameras? I can make sound and camera all alone, and you stay behind. And one of them said immediately, I come with you. The other one, an American who was a little bit more timid, he said, I don't know, can I clean my glasses? And they were all forked over from the journey. And he cleaned the glasses, and then I said, Edward, have you made up your mind? He said, no. Can I step out of the car? And I have to take a leak. So I said, do that. He comes back into the car, and he says, what is going to happen if the mountain explodes? And I said, it can happen, but if it explodes, we will be airborne. And he said, I come with you. So you have to give them the chance. Everybody has to know, yes, there's a risk. Never hide any risks. Everybody has to know. Every single one has to know what you can expect. And then make up your mind. But today you can make a film all alone. You do not, for example, a documentary. You can have a digital camera with a good microphone mounted, and you can make the film all alone. So if you are if you are on an exploding volcano, you will be the only one flying. And there's a very good example now, an Austrian filmmaker, Hubert Sauper. He made a film in southern Sudan, which is called We Come as Friends. And he made it all alone. He built himself a tiny aircraft, which is, I mean, ridiculously small. And he went all the way in small hops, all the way to the southern Sudan. And he filmed the film all alone, in very dangerous war zones, in situations that were not calculable anymore. And he's a very good example. You can do, when it really gets risky, you better do it all alone. Thank you.
На всякий случай повторю название фильма. Хуберт Заупер. Мы пришли как друзья. Можете найти его в интернете. Пожалуйста, ваш вопрос.
Здравствуйте, Вернер. Меня зовут Слава.
Hubert Sauper, just 1 second. Hubert Sauper made a wonderful other film, which is called Darwin's Nightmare on Lake Malawi. Very, very interesting.
И снова здравствуйте, Вернер. Меня зовут Слава. Очень большая честь стоять здесь и говорить с вами. И, пользуясь случаем, хочется сказать огромное спасибо за ту книгу, которую вы сделали вместе с Полом Крониным, потому что это воистину одно из самых вдохновляющих произведений, которые мне когда-либо доводилось читать. Но мой вопрос, он касается фильма «Уроки тьмы». В этом фильме мы как будто бы смотрим на все с высоты полета какой-то птицы. Мы летим над этим странным непонятным миром, и в какой-то момент в середине мы облетаем какой-то разбитый ангар и вдруг видим тень от вертолета. И в этот момент я говорю себе: черт, значит, я не птица. Почему этот кадр попал в фильм?
I think that everybody who takes a good look at the film will understand this can only have been done from a helicopter. There's no real alternative. At that time we didn't have drones, and the drone couldn't fly that far. So if the tool of your camera is visible, I do not care. It's quite all right. And by the way, when you are filming from a helicopter, from an aeroplane, the real key to the quality of the shot is a pilot and not your cinematographer. So when I'm in a helicopter, I always look at where the camera looks, and I would say, I would speak to the pilot and I would say, slow down, pass by now, take a right curve, and I always see what the camera is doing. So you have to be not helicopter aware, you have to be pilot aware, and you have to know what the camera is doing. And of course the pilot sometimes would say, I cannot fly any closer, my helicopter will explode. And I would say, okay, now you make your own choice. So you have to, of course we have to follow the advice of a pilot. Recently, like in my last film, Into the Inferno, I have used drones because we had to fly over boiling lava, and the helicopter cannot do that. The helicopter would explode. Drones easily get lost there, but we saved our drone each time. So you have to understand how to use a tool really well. You want to get away with a film, and not with bravado.
Пожалуйста, ваш вопрос.
Здравствуйте, Вернер. Меня зовут Мария. Я очень рада, что могу вам лично задать вопрос. У меня сейчас такой достаточно личный вопрос, который меня волнует. Мне 32 года, по первому образованию я художник-иллюстратор, и сейчас я в течение своей жизни очень медленно шла к работе режиссера, я пишу сценарии, что какие-то идеи у меня появляются. В этом году я пыталась поступить на режиссуру, но, к сожалению, у меня не вышло. Как вы считаете, смогу ли я получить тот опыт жизненный режиссера, если не буду обучаться профессионально этому, сможет ли жизнь меня в будущем научить тому, тем знаниям, которым мне не хватает?
Yeah, no, it's a deep question. Of course, with your previous work as an illustrator, you already are familiar with perspectives and specific ways to see images and to create images. So you're not very far away from becoming a filmmaker yourself. But ultimately, for directing a film or for writing a screenplay, you will not need the film school. Sometimes it is good probably to be around young people who have similar ambitions, who are excited about cinema. The kind of climate, the kind of discourse is probably quite valuable. That's a good side of a film school. And of course, in film school, I hope they do it here, you will look deeper into film history. So that's an important part, and you will not see it easily outside. Via internet nowadays, you can dig very deep into film history as well, because the films are much easier available. But whatever you are doing here at film school, if you enter a course as a director, parallel to all this, write your own screenplay. Immediately write it. Do it at night if school isn't there. And don't wait to start using your own vision to create a film. Whether the film school has it in its program or not, just start filming yourself. And the film school, as you are here, is only something that accompanies you in a way. But otherwise, nothing can replace real life, real experience in real life. And how do you gain that, I do not know. It's all your own life, your own business.
Большое спасибо.
Пожалуйста, ваш вопрос.
Можно? Вернер, мое почтение. У меня вопрос касаемо вашего последнего фильма, который мне довелось вчера посмотреть, это Lo and Behold. А точнее, касаемо двух кадров последних, которые вы смонтировали. Это первый, когда высказываются какие-то мысли таких титанических людей, как Лоренс Краус, как Илон Маск, о том, как эти люди меняют будущее, как они причастны к тому, что меняет будущее. И вы... Нельзя по состоянию здоровья жить возле вышек, которые излучают этот самый сигнал. И вы их снимаете с какой-то неподдельной любовью. Вы подходите к ним близко, и видно, как вы их любите. Вы считаете то, что те эмоции, которые испытывают эти люди, которые показаны в последнем кадре, это и есть то самое незыблемое, то самое настоящее, которое будет сопровождать нас на протяжении 100 лет, 500, 1000 и останется в нас навсегда. Спасибо.
Yeah, I think an essence of what you are doing as a filmmaker is everybody who appears in your film is important, and you are excited about them, and you have to show them. You see, when you are filming someone, I'm always very close to the lens of the camera. I'm not visible. But I look at them with so much enthusiasm, and I nod at them, and I want to hear more, and they sense it. They sense how much I like them. And all of a sudden you become a wonderful response, and it happens even with people who are on death row. I tell them right away, I'm not an advocate of capital punishment. And I tell them, the fact that your childhood was very difficult, and the fact that you are planned for execution in 8 days does not necessarily mean that I have to like you, but I really respect you and I want to hear. So this, in some cases you cannot have the full love, but deep respect for them, and let them know. And when I film with a death row inmate, I wear a formal suit. You see, today I have my Bavarian jacket just to show you I'm Bavarian. But when I'm with a death row inmate, I have a formal suit just to show respect. And I'm not even on camera. And it's something really essential that you have to bring across. And then the film will develop its own qualities, and people will develop their own qualities. What I also do is I try to avoid that anyone in the crew, in the team, speaks to the person before. And I try to limit my conversation only when the camera is rolling. You see, there's no preparatory discourse and feeling the pulse. it has to be out of enormous curiosity and sympathy on the spot. And because of that, I shoot very small amount of footage. And I see it very often that young filmmakers, they come to me and they say, oh, I filmed 2.5 years and I shot 650 hours of footage. You know, my heart sinks. My heart sinks. Because apparently they didn't know what they were doing. In a film like Into the Abyss, about these death row inmates, I filmed 6 or 8 hours of footage and I made a 2 hours film. So it's so condensed. And what makes this condensation possible is the attention, the sympathy, and even a feeling of loving connection to the subjects in my film. And you have to learn that. If you don't have that, you will make all these films where you are leaving the audience like behind a glass wall.
Спасибо.
Пожалуйста.
Mr. Herzog, thank you for coming. I've got a very general question, but it must be asked. Many of people of the art, creators, call them how we want, go through art crisis when you can't create. Have you been through such period, and how did you cope with it? Thank you.
Yes, I hear it that artists are in crisis once in a while. It is foreign to me. I have never been in a crisis. I've always been completely and crazily self-confident. And it started early on in a way that was really embarrassing. It has never occurred to me, so I cannot really be of help. But if you are in a crisis, or if an artist is in a crisis, I would say leave what your profession is somehow behind, do something essential. Travel on foot to Barcelona because you want to see Messi playing, for example. So, something I believe that might be of help. Expose yourself to the real world, but where the real world is at great intensity. That may be helpful, but I'm the last one who could answer the question.
Thank you.
Пожалуйста.
Good evening. I'm so pleased that you came, and because I don't know, I couldn't sleep the whole night because I knew that I will be able to ask a question for you, and I had so much questions, but I choose one. In one interview, you mentioned that you don't use a storyboard. I wonder why, and don't you use it only in documentary film or in fiction films also? Thank you.
It's correct. I have never used storyboards. Normally storyboards are not even created by yourself, but by some sort of a sketch artist. And I believe pre-establishing every single shot in a scene somehow stifles and kills all imagination on the set. You see, you become the slave, you become the servant of your storyboard, and any idiot could come and do the same work, and just you show them, now I need a close-up from this angle, and then I need a wide shot, whatever, in a semicircle, and so it takes life out of a set. It becomes completely dead. You will need a storyboard if you do a lot of green screen. If you have technical digital effects, you know, for example, behind us there will be the pyramids in Egypt. Of course, you have to now you have to move a little bit more because the pyramid should be in the frame like here, and you are covering halfway. So in such cases, it is totally legitimate to use a storyboard. Otherwise, for me, it's the instruments of the cowards. And those who do not trust in their imagination when they are on a set. And let it come at you. I'm always the most unprepared on the set. I never look into the screenplay, only in the last moment I know what the scene is all about. And continuity normally comes to me, and normally it's women, and she would ask me, into how many shots will you dissolve the sequence now? And I said, I have no idea. Let's work into it. And I start working with the actors and with the cinematographer, and we create a basic choreography of the scene, of the entire scene. Dialogue, movement of people, movement of camera. And my first answer always is, at least it will be one take. Let's try to do the entire sequence in one single take. Quite often it is not possible because there are jumps in time or there's jumps into some detail. Very often I like to have the camera moving in between us. All of a sudden I want to see what time is it, and I look at your wristwatch close and come back. And so, but quite often the fastest movement to the wristwatch is a cut. The fastest movement is always a cut. So quite often shooting a sequence in one single take is counterproductive. But you have to look at a scene with the attitude as if you had to cover it in one single shot. And then you start, of course, I need something closer, I would need a reverse shot, and I hardly ever shoot what is called coverage in the film industry. I didn't even know what coverage meant. I had no idea what it was. I had to ask my assistant director, what do they mean by coverage? And he said, yeah, we have to add a very close-up of the eyes, and we have to have an overhead shot circling. And I said, I don't want it, and I do not need it. I do not need it for what I'm showing on the screen. So you have to have the courage to go on a set and start to develop a scene how you have imagined it. Very often there are obstacles, and you can lose yourself in obstacles. And you lose yourself all day long in obstacles, and you never do a shot. So what I do, and I advise you very strongly, come on the set. I'm speaking of a feature film now with actors. Come on the set. Let's say 8 o'clock, everybody arrives on the set. Not later than 90 minutes later, you start rolling the camera. And I do not care whether the makeup is perfect and whether they are still doing some reflectors, some lights. Everybody is so alert because they know, let's do the essential things. Let's do the essential light. Sometimes, of course, you do some corrections in the light. But go on the set and be ready to shoot no matter what, 1.5 hours later. So that's very, very important, and I think the director who made Gladiator, what's his name in English? Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott, I hear the same thing somebody told me, and on a big set, Ridley Scott starts to shoot no matter what, after very short time of preparation. Everything else falls in place in the wake of the dynamic that you are creating. So you have to create a real dynamic. And for creating a dynamic, and I would like to also advise you, I have seen Hollywood sets where everybody is inattentive. Everybody, 250 people on the set. 30 are really working. 200 are sitting around and they are texting or making phone calls. That's what you see on the set. I see on the set a big star, a Hollywood star, and he has to, in a dialogue, let's say, you are speaking, you are the star, speaking with me, only 10 meters away, exactly this eye line, there's a producer on the cell phone and speaking softly, but making sounds like this in the eye lines. I said to the actor, he invited me, and in the pause I said, why don't you stop everything and kill this man with a shovel, with a snow shovel from behind, cowardly? Why don't you do that? But it's what happens on sets. On my set is very, very easily organized. There's a tripod and a camera. Wherever the camera is, that's the epicenter of everything, because I'm rehearsing with actors in front of the idle camera. If you want to make a cell phone call, yes, you can do it, but you have to move 100 meters away. And for calling walkie-talkies, yes, you need walkie-talkies for, let's say, asking the truck, quickly come in and bring us the tracks for the dolly. Those who are on walkie-talkies have to be, let's say, 30 meters away, at least like from here to this other wall here. And then all of a sudden you have a very focused set. And I do my slate myself, how do you say, the clapboard, the slate.
Yeah,
and I'm always the last one who would move out between the actors on one side and the camera on the other side. So I'm the last one. I see camera, light, everything is ready. And I very often have physical contact with the actors, also in documentaries. I would be nearby, and very often I would have my hand on the person, very softly, or sometimes just when they're nervous, I just talk to them and I have my hand on them. And then I want to show, this is getting serious now. I do the slate board. I'm the last one to move out between the technical apparatus and the performers. And I do slate almost always in documentary films as well. I step out, I say, can we do it now? Is it difficult for you to speak? And they would say, yes, it's difficult for me to speak about this catastrophe. I said, courage. I will be right next to the camera. Do the slate and I move right next to the camera. And then all of a sudden you have a rapport, which is really intense. So it's a question of how you organize in practical terms your set. And it's for every single type of film. You have to be, and it's not, you do not have to be a dictator. There's a clear reason, and you can explain it to everybody. At the beginning of shooting, I ask everybody together and I say, there are very few rules that I would like to have on my set, because I want to set the cultural climate of my set. So.
Thank you so much. It was a great answer. Thank you.
Well, I have the respect of the producers, but actually I'm speaking of a great Hollywood star where I witnessed it. But on the set of Tom Cruise, yes, there's 250 people, and 200 are on their cell phones or texting, and nobody knows what's going on, and they shoot way too much. They shoot coverage. After 4 or 5 hours, I had the feeling everything was fine, but then is more and more additional shooting, because they do not trust in their instincts, and they film and film and film, because the real decisions do not belong to the next position in the line of duty. They delegate it to post-production. You see, they delegate it to the editing. And I keep saying, do not delegate everything into the future and into the next step. Take your good decisions right now. That's what you do as a director. And for example, bad acting, you cannot correct with digital effects. Everybody says, yeah, if there's something not right, we'll do some digital enhancement, we'll improve it, we'll correct it with digital effects. And you very often you cannot correct anything with the digital effect. So you better take your solid, good decisions right on the set itself. And you have to be very, very fast. Sometimes it turns out this or that cannot be done. You have to understand, my set in Agiri all of a sudden was inundated, it was flooded. We wake up and the horse is standing in the water, the rafts are destroyed, the cannon is almost submerged. So what do you do? And in 60 seconds I developed a scene which explains, yes, floods have taken the rafts. Part of the conquistadores want to return to the base, some of them want to advance. And I even created a new conflict out of this little disaster which happened. So you have to come up with answers very, very, very fast.
Thank you.
Друзья, это разбивает мое сердце, но мы больше часа уже говорим, 2 вопроса.
А можно от прессы один вопрос? От прессы петербургской.
It's okay, we have more time than 2 more questions.
Yeah, okay.
Hello, it's nice to see you here. My question is about your online courses, which are on masterclass.com, which appeared this year. Everybody knows that you are against film schools. And how did you decide to do these online courses? I know it's about 26 videos in them. And can you tell about them to us?
This masterclass is not a contradiction. What happens is that within the last decades, an enormous avalanche of young people has come at me. They want to learn from me or they want to be assistant in one of my films, so I tried to give a systematic answer. Part of my systematic answer is my rogue film school, the guerrilla style film school, which is not really like a normal film school. It's pretty wild. And the other part of the answer is this online course, masterclass. I was invited to do it, and I looked into what else I had done. I had done, for example, masterclass with 2 actors, Dustin Hoffman and Kevin Spacey, and one about tennis playing, Serena Williams, very fine tennis player, and I think one with a pop singer, Christina Aguilera, I think, which I haven't seen. And I had the feeling the format was not bad at all, and I said to them, let me try it, but I will put more intensity in it than all the others have done. And I have the feeling that the response to this online masterclass has been overwhelming. It has had many, many, many times more people watching it than, for example, Serena Williams or Dustin Hoffman. And I try, you see, I do not give little charity. When I give myself. And this online course is something where I try to be useful, because I have had a long life in filmmaking. I simply have made more films than most of those who watch this masterclass. And I have learned many, many things the hard way. And I try to pass something on that some of the young people number one, have some sort of guidance, and some of them could avoid mistakes that I have made. I speak about mistakes as well. And the third answer to this is this book, Herzog on Herzog with Paul Cronin, which was mentioned. There's a much better version now, which is 15 or 18 more films and photos and some poetry I have written and some prose text. It's almost 600 pages. We didn't want to call it a second edition. We gave it a new title, A Guide for the Perplexed. I think this will eventually be released in Russian language, but you can find it under the Guide for the Perplexed. So I try to give some guidance to young people who cannot learn from me directly.
Thank you.
Пожалуйста, это уже последний, наверное, вопрос.
Нет, а можно последний будет? Да, а можно последний?
Нет, молодой человек, давайте.
Mr. Herzog, thank you very much for coming here. I think this means a lot for us and it's very inspirational. I've heard an opinion that film directing is not even a profession, it's a characterization. Do you agree with that? And if you do, what is the most important trait for a film director?
Oh, that's a question I cannot answer, but I personally never felt that I had a profession. It's only life that I have. And I leave some traces in the sand, like on a beach, and the next wave will extinguish my traces eventually. So I never had the feeling this is a profession. And I simply have very clear visions, and I try to pass it on. Or I have a great story and I try to tell the story to an audience. So I'm a storyteller, I'm a poet, and that's all there is. And otherwise I slalom through life with all the defeats and all the catastrophes and all the glories that's out there for all of us. But I'm not afraid to live the life as a filmmaker. And when I remember a moment when I was very desperate, when I was 16 or 17 years old, and one of my projects was dismissed by a production company. And I remember it was in winter, and there's a little artificial lake in a park in Munich, and I walked across the ice and I stood under a tree and I said to myself, I have understood my destiny. I do understand my destiny, but am I the one to shoulder it really or not? And I spent half the night in darkness, in solitude, on some frozen lake, and I decided, yes, I will muster the strength to shoulder my destiny. And I will not be afraid, and I will do what I have to do. So there's a sense of duty in me since then. And you probably, when you make films, whether it becomes a profession or not, you have to have the sense of duty. And you have to have the sense, the understanding, this is really your destiny. And then you just go for it.
Thank you very much.
Можно технический вопрос? Алексей. Sorry, sir. Just 1 second, please. У нас по времени уточните просто, у нас ажиотажный спрос на вопросы, особенно на ответы. Сколько у нас времени?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. We continue until the last one.
Мы до понедельника открыты.
Да. Подожди, да. Можно?
Пока продолжай.
My name is Dasha. When I found out that you're coming to St. Petersburg, I was running around my friend's house and screaming, "Oh my God!" at 3 a.m. And my question is actually about human extinction. In one of your interviews, you said that the humanity will become extinct soon. And what do you think will be the cause of the humanity extinction? And the second question, you also said that if you knew that tomorrow there will be the apocalypse, you would start making a new movie. What this movie would be about? Thank you very much.
Well, the second part of your question is actually a modified quote from Martin Luther, the reformist. He said, if tomorrow the world ends, today I would plant an apple tree.
Yes, you quoted
Yes, it's actually Luther who, and I do not predict the end of human life, but I speculate about it and I'm thinking about it. In particular now in my new film about volcanoes, I filmed in Ethiopia. In the vicinity of volcanoes, early humans and hominids were attracted by obsidian, a glass that is extruded by volcanoes. And they were excavating skeletal remains of the earliest Homo sapiens, 100,000 years back. And I asked one of the scientists, do we have another 100,000 years? And it's interesting what he's saying. Probably in 1,000 years from now, the human race will enter a very critical phase because of mistakes that are accumulating now. So we still can do a lot and we can correct things. So we have to be attentive. I would say we continue a little bit. Translation has a pause now, but you will translate for the next 5 minutes. Can we do that?
Yeah.
Translation asked me for our interpreter to make a short pause, but we continue here with you.
Of course.
Yes. Okay.
Да-да, вы можете отдохнуть, а я переведу.
Можно? Hello, Mr. Herzog. My question is very simple. Can you tell me the worst or the best, or okay, just the main thing you have understood during your lifetime about film, about cinematography, but in one sentence?
Итак, вопрос, можете вы сказать самое страшное и самое замечательное, или просто хотя бы одну какую-то вещь, которую вы поняли о кино, но только в одном предложении.
I just want to hear one very important sentence.
Хочу услышать одно очень важное предложение.
Sometimes when I'm asked to sign a book with a little text in it, the shortest way to do it, I write into it, every man for himself and God against all.
Когда меня просят подписать книгу, и обычно это какое-то краткое сообщение, которое я хочу оставить на странице, на титульном листе, я пишу каждый за себя и Бог против всех.
But of course, it's impossible to condense experience of a lifetime in one slogan.
Но, конечно, невозможно сформулировать опыт всей жизни в одном каком-то лозунге.
Politics can do it, but not a filmmaker. Politics can condense it.
Политики могут с этим справиться, а вот кинематографисты нет. Пожалуйста.
Здравствуйте. У меня такой вопрос. Важен ли для вас язык, на котором вы снимаете фильм? Всегда ли вы можете выразить свои чувства и эмоции на чужом для вас языке, а не на немецком, например.
Yeah. That's an important question for me because number one, I learned some foreign languages to reflect my own language. That's important. And I think a filmmaker, a film director should speak at least 2 or 3 major languages.
Да, конечно, мне кажется, что это очень важный для меня вопрос. Я сам выучил несколько языков для того, чтобы общаться в процессе создания кино, и мне кажется, что кинематографист должен владеть 2-3 языками.
And of course, it may sound like a paradox, but I, as a filmmaker, do not watch many films, but I read a lot.
Конечно, это может прозвучать как парадокс, но я сам кинематографист, смотрю довольно немного фильмов, но читаю я очень много.
There's hardly a day where I do not read.
Каждый день буквально, редко бывает, как день без книги обойдется.
And of course, reading always has given me a sense of storytelling, a sense of rhythm, a sense of conceptual thinking.
И, конечно, чтение — это то, что мне раскрыло смысл рассказывания истории, раскрыло смысл ритма, раскрыло смысл концептуального подхода.
And normally young people who are too much on the internet and Facebook and so do not read enough.
Очень часто молодые люди, которые много времени проводят в интернете, за Фейсбуком, мало читают.
And I'm very lucky to be in a country where people still read a lot, but just go to a college in the United States, nobody reads anymore, and that's a disaster.
И я рад приехать в страну, где, насколько я знаю, люди еще довольно много читают, но навестите какой-нибудь университет в Соединенных Штатах, колледж, и вы увидите, что люди читают очень мало. Это настоящая катастрофа.
And reading doesn't mean I have never read a single book about film theory, not one book about screenwriting, never.
Ну, что я имею в виду под чтением? Учебников по кино, по тому, как правильно написать сценарий, я никогда не читал, даже не открывал.
But I do read poetry, for example. When I start a screenplay, I move myself up into poetry, some of the best, and then I'm ready to write.
Но когда я перед тем, как написать сценарий, я читаю поэзию. Я читаю самую гениальную поэзию на свете, и вот стихотворение я заряжаюсь, и я чувствую, что вот я готов писать.
Our translation is back. Yes. So, okay, thank you very much for your patience. There's one more thing I would like to mention, and it's not just reading or watching films. Engage yourself very deeply with music, because the affinity of music to filmmaking is much closer than the affinity between filmmaking and literature.
Vielen Dank.
Okay.
Пожалуйста.
Good evening. We were happy that you can visit us, and I have a very simple question, like others. From the average of your life experience, from the deepest of your soul, can you answer for whom and for what cinematography exists?
I do not really know for whom and for what does poetry exist, and for whom and for what do we listen to great music. It's just within human nature that distinguishes us from the cows in the field. They have no storytelling, but we have it, and we better do it well.
Следующий вопрос, пожалуйста.
Oh, obviously it's a great honor. Now to the question. I wanted to ask you, in modern Western society there is a feeling that everything has been done and said 1 million times. Is it possible in this culture to create art without any postmodernistic irony and with 100% sincerity?
Forget about all this phraseology of postmodernistic whatever. I can't even follow. Just watch my films. Yes, it is possible.
Thank you very much.
Grüß Gott, ich spreche kein Bayerisch leider, nur Deutsch. Я по-русски сейчас. Меня зовут Лиза, я родилась в Петербурге, но учусь сейчас в Мюнхене, в киношколе. И поэтому я столкнулась с такой проблемой. Хочу спросить у вас о связи режиссера со своей страной. То есть понятно, что каждый человек, главное, что он человек, но все-таки есть же бэкграунд страны, национальности.
Well, we shouldn't speak so much about country, we should speak about culture. Yes, I'm very deeply embedded in my own culture. And strangely enough, it's not the German culture or the Prussian German culture, it's very Bavarian. And it's very distinct, like for example, Irishmen and Englishmen are very distinct, or Scottish people and English. So I have the feeling that a certain sort of Baroque exuberance of storytelling has always been a trademark of Bavaria. Wild fantasies like the castles, the fantasy castles of the last Bavarian King Ludwig II, who was insane, is what makes Bavaria what it is. In Prussia, in Berlin, you would never have Neuschwanstein Castle. It's Bavarian. And I think you have to maintain your own culture. And you are very blessed. You are blessed that you are Russians. You have this enormous depth of literature and music and poetry and philosophy. So that's what you should never cut off. Even if you work in New Zealand, you will remain a Russian. Even if you do a film in English language, you will remain a Russian. And I keep saying, people say, yeah, you made a Latin American film now because you did Aguirre, The Wrath of God, or you did Fitzcarraldo in Amazonia. I say, no, this is not a Latin American film, this is a Bavarian film. It was shot in English, but it's Bavarian, deep in its cultural context. So never, never, ever, ever lose your context to your culture.
Пожалуйста.
Здравствуйте, Вернер Херцог. Очень здорово, что вы к нам приехали. Я очень рад. Хотел спросить вас, каким своим фильмом вы гордитесь больше всего? И сколько фильмов вы еще планируете снять? И в каком ключе вы планируете снимать их дальше? Есть ли у вас какая-то линия тематики, которую вы придерживаетесь в своих фильмах? Спасибо.
No, it's a burglars in the middle of the night, as I have explained. But in a way, I'm faster than the means of distribution. While I'm sitting here, and while last night we showed my internet film, I have 2 more finished films already. A film on volcanoes, Into the Inferno, and I have a narrative feature film called Salt and Fire. And the next plans, or so the next things that are coming are probably a couple of feature films, but I really do not know. It will come at me with great vehemence, and I will try to be as fast as possible. I've become faster today because editing goes much faster in digital editing. I can edit almost as fast as I'm thinking. And today, if I do not find the finances for a film, I would do it camera and sound all myself as a one person. So I have no clear idea what's coming. Maybe they take me out in a straitjacket.
Последние два вопроса, пожалуйста. Больше не занимайтесь.
Okay. Yes, okay.
Душа великого автора всегда является загадкой. И я хочу спросить об одной очень распространенной загадке, потому что мы, люди, много узнаем, пытаясь эти загадки отгадывать. Речь идет о таком явлении, как странная, таинственная любовь представителей высокой культуры к жанровому кино. Робер Бresson относился к этому непримиримо, он ненавидел обыкновенное кино, но другие великие авторы страстно любят. Это таинственно, это необъяснимо. Нам очень важно понимать менталитет великих авторов, и поэтому я хочу спросить, как случилось, что вы встретились с вестерном? В каком это было возрасте? Сколько продолжалась ваша любовь? Закончилась ли она? И самое главное, что это были за фильмы? И пару слов, всего каких-нибудь два слова об этих фильмах, которые вас пленили.
Okay. Yes, I have looked into, let's say, very popular phenomena like on television. I hear. Yeah, I have your voice now in my. Okay. Yeah, no, it's okay. I have looked into very vulgar things that are happening, for example, on television. I have looked at the most vulgar of vulgar American TV, for example, but not because I'm so fascinated or in love with it. It's simply to understand in what kind of world do I live. And I have never been really in love with westerns or B pictures like Bresson probably or so. I've never been in that. The only exception maybe is Fred Astaire movies that are not really very high class movies, but they have something so essential about cinema, and that is movement. And I just like to see a dancer as professional as Fred Astaire. The stories are always very stupid, and the dialogues are even more stupid. And yet I love to see Fred Astaire in films. But otherwise, I do not see many films. That's a basic problem you will encounter right away.
Yeah, I just remember how you quoted Fred Astaire in The Cave of Forgotten Dreams when you compared it to the shadows of cave people reflecting on the stone walls of caves.
But all of a sudden, in Fred Astaire, what makes it so wonderful and so mysterious, he's dancing and you see him in the screen like smaller figure, and he casts three gigantic shadows against the wall, and they dance exactly like not valid anymore. And there's a very deep conceptual idea behind it, which I admire. So even Fred Astaire, in the most stupid stories, does things that are stunning and very deep. Okay.
Great. Last question, please.
Okay. Yeah.
Здравствуйте. Меня вот интересует такой вопрос. Вы, как нам известно, как нам вас представили, сказали, что не очень любите, не очень уважаете образование. И хотелось бы спросить такой вопрос.
Зачем же мы учимся?
Как будущему режиссеру, где вы посоветовали бы поработать, чтобы получить опыт?
Well, number one, you are at film school and make the best out of it. Make the best out of it, and you will have access to to cameras, editing equipment, sound equipment, mixing, and what is a great advantage among young people your age. So be active, exchange ideas, point out wonderful films that you discovered and listen to others what they have discovered. So it's not 100% against film schools, but where do you make your films? Of course, very soon you will leave the film school and then all of a sudden you are out in the wilderness. And nobody is going to help you, nobody will give you a scholarship. The world is not in favor of those who want to make films. So you have to learn very quickly to become, ultimately try to become self-reliant. When you are self-reliant, you do not need to look what money is doing. Money always has two awful qualities. Money is slow, and money is stupid, and money is cowardly. It has these three awful qualities. So you have to overcome it somehow. You have to be more intelligent than money is thinking and operating. So what can I say? It's work towards self-reliance, work towards the day you're leaving this film school, and be prepared that it's not going to be an easy life. And it has never been an easy life for me either, so don't think, yeah, he made a lot of films, it must have become easier nowadays. No, it is more difficult for me to make films today, because the basis of audiences in a way has been reduced. Audiences have moved away to the monumental Hollywood films, let's say like Star Wars. Art house films hardly exist anymore, so basis of operation has become smaller. And I still move on and I plow on and I try to be unafraid. Just I do what I have to do, and somehow you have to acquire a certain street smartness, an intelligence how to survive anyway. And when you enter professional life, try to establish long-range perspectives, long-range alliances. The cameraman with whom you work should work with you, should be so good and so reliable that you would like to work with him for 10 years. The production with whom you are working should work with you the next 20 years. Find these people. Maybe the relationship is over after 3 months, but it doesn't matter. Don't look for opportunistic, quick solutions. So, what can I say? I wish you all the best. Good luck to all of you. May you make wonderful films. Thank you very much. Good evening.
Я наконец, кстати, понял, что такое послание человека.
Большое спасибо за перевод. Отдельно все говорят.
Спасибо.